My name is Chloe. I'm a biodiversity officer for Neath Patal Council. Also, I want to introduce Rose, my colleague, who is an ecologist for the council, and you'll be hearing from her in a bit. So this is our second meeting for the group. The idea behind it is basically for us to engage with the local community and provide some advice and guidance for actions that you guys can take to look after your local nature. So yeah, we hope it'll be useful. So can everyone see that screen? Yeah. So sorry for those of you who have heard this already, but for those who haven't, I just wanted to quickly introduce the Local Nature Partnership. So we are part of the NPT Cymru project, which is a Welsh government project that aims to build a nature recovery network across Wales. So this project has created local partnerships, which are facilitated by local authorities, and they're made up of different interested parties. So like local environmental groups, businesses, and public bodies. So these partnerships are then responsible for planning and carrying out different practical actions to protect and improve their local natural environment. So we have over 60 members in the NPT partnership at the moment. This slide shows just a few of our member organisations. So some of the members are here tonight, including our Vice Chair Catherine and hopefully our Chair Charles is in here somewhere as well. So if you have any questions for them, I'm sure they won't mind if you pop them in the chat. This group, NPT for Nature, is sort of a subgroup of the LNP. So we wanted to create a space to engage with enthusiastic local people who want to learn something new and get involved with helping nature in NPT. So obviously we want to know about you guys too. So as Rose has already said, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us a little bit about yourselves and maybe what you're interested in from this group. So our main objective or mission in the NPT Local Nature Partnership is to work together to further the conservation, awareness and enhancement of nature in the county. And as a partnership, we have 8 main aims for the county, so I'll just run through these quickly. So they are to protect existing habitats, to restore former habitat and to create new habitat in NPT, to halt the loss of biodiversity in NPT, to increase the awareness of importance of our local wildlife, to educate people about the importance of habitats, to conserve flora and fauna they support, to encourage people to get involved in protecting and enjoying their local biodiversity, to increase and share the knowledge held about particular species and sites, to influence activities to be more sensitive to local biodiversity needs, and to advise on appropriate action for conservation in NPT. So to achieve these aims, the LNB does quite a lot in the area. So this includes things like developing plans and policies, such as the State of Nature and Recovery Action Plan, which is due to be published soon, actually. The partnership is also really great for network and best practice sharing. So with lots of experts from different fields sharing their knowledge within the partnership. A lot of practical conservation projects are also carried out within the partnership. And there's a small pot of funding as well available to help other groups carry out projects in the area. The partnership also submits a lot of biodiversity data to our local records centre, and we also provide ecological advice to those who need it. So, for example, the local authority or external bodies, as well as members of the public. So moving on to what we are trying to protect, there's absolutely loads of wildlife in NPT that needs protecting. Despite its heavy industrial industry and even because of it in some cases, NPT has some really fantastic habitats and wildlife. We have 11 main habitat types in the county that are home to over 200 priority species, as well as countless others. So some of these habitats and species are of national and international importance. So for example, we have sites containing populations of some really rare species like the Deptford pink, shrill carder and fen raft spider. We have the only population of blue ground beetle in Wales, a nationally important breeding population of lapwing, and we are also a stronghold for breeding honey buzzards in Wales as well. So we are continuing with our featured habitat section, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of the variety of habitats we have in NPT. So last time we looked at woodlands. If you weren't at the last meeting, you can go back and watch it on our Facebook page if you want to catch up. And this time we're going to talk to you about our grassland habitats. So I'll hand over to Rose now, who's going to tell you a little bit about these habitats and what we're doing in NPT to help them.
technology's worked there, Chloe. That's amazing. Yes, so my name's Rose. I'm ecologist for the Neathport Talbot Council as well. You have to excuse me, I've got quite a croaky voice and a cough because I'm recovering from COVID, so I'll do my best not to cough too much. But yes, I'm going to talk about Grassland. So as Chloe mentioned, over the last few years, the partnership has been working hard to gather all the data on habitats and species in Neathport Talbot. The idea of that is we're trying to make an informed assessment of the state of nature of Neathport Talbot, and that will be available soon as a document that you can read, combined with an action plan, which will have ideas in there for what we think we need to do to help the particular habitats. And we've looked within that document, we've looked at each broad habitat in turn, and one of these types is semi-natural grassland. So that just means that there's been some sort of influence or management by humans, so mowing, grazing, or improving the soil in some way. And you can see it covers 6% of the land area in Neathport Talbot. That map on the right, the sort of the yellow is the grassland. But it is home to 1/5 of the priority species that we have for Neathport Talbot. So that's quite a high proportion and quite an important habitat type. So most of them are mesotrophic, so that's neutral grasslands, but we've also got acid grasslands, that kind of thing as well. And then there's an extensive network of road verges, which are quite an important contribution to the extent of the grassland that we've got, and they can be really beautiful as well and diverse. But another really important contributor of grassland habitats is, which is quite often a surprise, is the old coal tips, previously developed land, basically, that might have been a mine in the past, you know, a big pile of rock that's been put back and is now a really important grassland site, and people quite often overlook them. The grasslands are home to really many important species. In the south of the county, we've got the shrill carder bee, which is the bumblebee in the middle at the bottom. That's a really rare bumblebee and it's got its own conservation strategy. Neathport Talbot is one of an important area for that strategy. Lots of beautiful things like orchids, like the greater butterfly orchid there, bee orchids. God, Charles is on the call, he'll be able to tell us how many orchid species we've got. Things like the small blue butterfly, really rare. Things like the Roselle's bush cricket, lots of species that rely on this habitat. But unfortunately, the state of nature of grasslands in Neathport Talbot has actually been assessed as poor. Species-rich grasslands have been declining for the last 70 years. You know, in the UK, we've lost 97% of our wildflower meadows since the war, which is a horrible statistic. And that's things like land use changes, development, agricultural intensification, and neglect as well, actually. So grasslands actually are one of the habitats that require an element of management of some sort. You know, they'd have been maintained in the old wildwood days by large herds of grazing animals coming through. And if they don't have any sort of management, then many grasslands are quickly overtaken by trees when they're abandoned and you lose them altogether. And then, as we touched on in the last meeting as well, a real threat to the grasslands at the moment is the drive for tree planting that's taking place at the moment with climate change, and everyone's trying to do what they can to combat it. Tree planting on sites like this is actually a really bad thing, and ironically it can actually damage the carbon store. So there's lots of threats to this habitat, and unfortunately the state has been assessed as poor, as we can see. So that's a major concern. The value of these habitats are huge, but the good thing is that we can do some things to help our grasslands recover. Sorry, the dog's nagging me. So we're just going to touch on one of the projects that's running under the partnerships, and we're going to touch on this because it's the thing that I'm working on the most at the moment. And that's NPT Bee Friendly, which is a new scheme that we're doing as a council, as Neathport Talbot Council, to try and improve the extent and the condition of grasslands across the local authority estate. So that's road verges and bigger grassland areas as well, things like cemeteries or large areas of our estate. And traditionally, local authority managed verges have been cut every 2 to 3 weeks over the growing season. Every 2 weeks, the mowers are sent out, they blitz everything, they mulch up the cut material and drop it on the grass. And that just basically self-fertilizes the ground, and that just encourages the grass to grow more. Wildflowers are sort of completely the opposite to gardening, whereas we'll pile manure and nutrients onto our gardens. When we're looking to do wildflower management, we almost do the exact opposite, and we're trying to strip the nutrients out of the soil. Point of that is that nothing like grass or nettles or brambles has enough nutrient to completely outcompete everything else. And when there's lower nutrients, you get more competition, and then you get higher diversity of species. So the way we can do that is by using this machinery. So there's a picture of it down in the bottom right corner there. This is cut and collect mower. So it has a box on the back, picks up the arisings as it's cutting, and then you can move them elsewhere, put them into a compost heap, which is a good habitat in itself. And it strips the nutrients out of the soil, and then you get more wildflowers essentially. It also has other benefits, like we don't need to send the mowers out and using petrol, diesel so often, and there's other benefits like increased water storage of the soil, increased carbon storage of the soil as well. So over time that does lead to more wildflowers being established. And in our little logo here, we've used that rare bee, the shrill carder bee, as our logo. So we're going for 4 management approaches in Neath Port Talbot as a local authority. 3 of these are sort of focused at biodiversity. So there's this conservation cut, which is things like rural lanes. Basically just try not to cut them if we don't have to. That'll let things like bluebells grow and all these wildflowers that you see in the hedgerows to flourish. We will obviously have to maintain some areas as amenity grasslands and visibility splays for safety purposes. So you will still see cut grassland around the authority. But then we've also got these other ones which are meadow cut. That's our traditional. We're trying to make meadows. So you stop mowing for the whole of the summer. You come along with your cut and collect machine at the end and remove the arisings to keep the nutrients low, and you just let the flowers come basically. The nectar cut is sort of a compromise between areas that they might not want long grass because local people might not like it, or they still want some amenity use. But rather than cutting every 2 weeks, we'll be sending the mowers out a bit more, less frequent basically. So that'll change to a 4-weekly routine. And hopefully the idea of that is it's giving these sort of low growing flower species a bit more time to flower, set seed, hopefully recruit seeds back into the seed bank. So that's the idea of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to do this. We're not going out and seeding everywhere. What we're trying to do is encourage what's already there in the seed bank, all the native wildflowers. Unfortunately, seed mixes like this, they're not very sustainable. You have to renew them every year, which involves generally repeated use of herbicide. You scrape the soil up then, and then you reseed it. Obviously, we want to avoid using herbicide where possible. It's kind of against what we're trying to do. Seed mixes are really expensive, so it's quite an unsustainable thing in the long term. You can see most of those are not native species as well, so they can actually displace some distinctive native wildflowers, which we are trying to encourage, and erode the sort of, we've got amazing distinctive wildflower diversity. We're really lucky to have that in our seed bank already. Sometimes these non-native species can become invasive, which is obviously something we want to avoid as well. But also many of the pollinators that we've got in Neath Port Talbot, they've evolved with the native wildflowers that are here already. So something like this that hasn't evolved alongside it, it might be completely useless to a bumblebee coming along. You might not be able to access the pollen or the nectar, and therefore it's not much use to them at all. So for that reason, we're steering away from this. While they do look pretty, I think we can agree that something like this is if not, is just as beautiful, if not a lot more beautiful. And that's free wildflowers, as Laura would say. They come up. If you allow them to come up, they come up. So there's a few ways that you can help with this. Very simple things like stop using weed killer, embrace your dandelions. Dandelions are amazing. You know, they're often the earliest nectar source for queen bumblebees and things. So, you know, letting them come up in your lawn and not attacking them with a herbicide all the time is a really easy thing to do. Try to even encourage a bit more diversity in lawns as well. You know, we're not just looking for grass anymore. We'd like to see them low flowering, low growing flowers, self-heal, bird's foot trefoil, all these things that can grow quite low, and you can still mow the lawn and still use it as a lawn, but it has a bit more flower life in there. You can mow less and collect the cuttings. Encourage your friends and family to do the same, and then if you can help us spread the word about the fact that we're trying to do this as an authority as well, we're trying to get NPT Bee Friendly spread across the county, then that's really helpful. And if you see anywhere that you think might be a good place to manage like this, then you can let me know as well. I'll put I think my emails at the end of the presentation. And I just wanted to share this as well for anyone who is thinking that they'd like to make a meadow in an area, wherever. It could be your lawn or it could be a larger community space. This is a really useful resource from Plant Life, from the Magnificent Meadows Project. It's just a very simple, if you look at the ground and there's fewer than 5 wildflowers, you might want to look at creating a meadow, you might want to look at seeding. But if you can see that there's more than 5 wildflowers there already, all you have to do is enhance what you've got there. And if you just give the native seed bank an opportunity to come up, this is the kind of thing you get. This is in Longford, just because the mowers couldn't get out as regularly through the COVID lockdowns. All these orchids just popped up. We didn't do anything. We just stopped mowing for a couple of weeks, and that's what happened. So it's really worth giving just putting the mower away for a start and seeing what happens. But yeah, we'll send this round with the notes as well, but that's a really useful document to use if you're thinking of creating a meadow or managing a meadow. And I think that's it from me. No?
Great, there we go. Thank you, Rose. Some really great tips there. I hope you'll all be putting your mowers away after that anyway. So next up is ideas for events and activities. So obviously summer is around the corner, and we want you guys to get out and enjoying the sunshine, hopefully anyway. So just same as last time, we put together some ideas for events and activities that you can do either at home, in the garden, or with your community groups over the next few months. So there's loads of events going on over the summer, and if anyone has any other events planned or ideas, please feel free to pop them in the chat, but these are just a few things that are happening that you guys could get involved with. So the first thing to mention is International Dawn Chorus Day, which is going to be on the 1st of May. So this is definitely one for the early birds. Everyone is just basically encouraged to set an early alarm and either open their window or step outside to enjoy the dawn chorus. So yeah, it's been scientifically proven that listening to birdsong boosts your well-being and reduces stress in humans. So there really is no better way to start the day. If you want to know who you are listening to as well, there are loads of great resources online to help you identify different bird songs. There's a link at the bottom of this slide that has some clips of some of the most common garden birds that you'll hear. So another nice event in the first week of May is Hedgehog Awareness Week. So hedgehogs are having a pretty tough time at the moment, unfortunately. Population estimates aren't great for them, but the recent stats suggest that they've declined by up to 75% in the last 20 or so years. So obviously that's really not good news, but we can do something to help. So hedgehogs have really large home ranges and can cross up to 2 kilometres in a single night. So gardens are really important for hedgehogs living in urban areas, but unfortunately a lot of gardens aren't very accessible for them. So the best thing you can do for your local hedgehogs is to make your garden accessible to them. So if you have a totally imprisoned garden, then you're not really going to be getting much wildlife that travels on foot. So if you can cut a hole in your fence or gate, then you'll be helping your local hedgehogs, as well as things like frogs and slowworms as well. So it doesn't need to be big at all. A 13 by 13 centimetre gap is fine for a hedgehog. It's about the size of a CD. There's a link at the bottom of the slide as well with a step-by-step guide on how to make a hedgehog hole. And if you can as well, encourage your neighbours to do the same. Make a hedgehog highway on your street, because obviously the more connected, the better. So in keeping with the grassland theme, No Mow May and Every Flower Counts is happening in May. So I'm sure a lot of you heard of No Mow May by now. It's gained quite a lot of traction in recent years. It's not so much an activity, it's more of a non-activity. You just don't mow your lawn for a whole month. It's obviously, as Rose has been saying, it's really lovely just to see what flowers come up and how many come up, and it can be a massive help to your local bees and pollinators. And then at the end of the month, on the bank holiday weekend, there's a nationwide Every Flower Counts survey. So this basically is a survey to discover how many bees the UK's lawns can feed. So all you have to do is count the number of flowers in a square metre patch of your lawn, and then this gives you a personal nectar score, which tells you how many bees your lawn can feed, which is quite a nice activity to do in the garden. Then the last thing for May is Invasive Species Week, which is on the 16th to the 20th of May. Unfortunately, NPT struggles with quite a few invasive species, but one of the species that you can help tackle is Himalayan balsam. So balsam is an annual plant that grows really tall with these quite pretty pink flowers, but it spreads really rapidly and outcompetes our native annuals. So it's particularly common along riverbanks, where you can find like really long stands of basically just Himalayan balsam and nothing else. But the good thing is it has a really shallow root system, which means it can be easily pulled out of the ground. So May and June is quite a good time to get out and do a bit of balsam bashing, because the plants will be starting to flower at this time, which makes it really easy to identify, but they won't have set seed yet. It's really important not to pull them up as they've started to set seed, because they've got exploding seed pods. They're a bit like busy lizzies. I don't know if a lot of you probably know what busy lizzy seed pods are like. Yeah, so if you pull them up and then the seed pods burst, you're just helping them disperse their seeds. So the other thing then, if you do pull up balsam, is to just make sure that you leave it with the roots off the ground. So obviously if you do it in quite a large area, you might not be able to take the material home with you. But either if you just sort of hang it over a branch or leave the roots somewhere where they're not going to be able to reroot, like hard standing, or maybe like chop the roots off the bottom of the first few layers that you pile up and then put the rest on, just so they don't have a chance to reroot. Okay, so on to June. The entire month of June is 30 Days Wild. So this is the Wildlife Trust's annual challenge to do one thing wild every day throughout the month of June. So a lot of you are probably aware of it. It's gotten quite popular in the past couple of years, and it's a really great excuse to get out in the sunshine. The Wildlife Trust provide lots of different activity ideas if you just sign up to the challenge on their website. They sent around activity packs and stuff last year, so I think they'll probably do the same this year. On the 5th of June, it is World Environment Day. The theme this year is Only One Earth, and it's focusing on living sustainably and in harmony with nature. So obviously there are major sort of system changes that are needed, but there are lots of things that you can do as an individual to help. So some nice ideas might be to find out what your carbon footprint is. There are lots of calculators online, and then maybe you could make a commitment to reduce it in one or two ways. For example, maybe you could walk or cycle more short journeys, or use public transport or something like that. And then if you want to do something with your community group, maybe you could host a workshop on mending items of clothing, or even host a swap shop with your group. That might be nice. And then into July, Wales Nature Week is going to be in July this year. The dates haven't fully been confirmed yet, but we'll let you know once we know. So there'll be lots of fun events and activities going on. Some will be online and some will be in person, so hopefully there'll be something for everyone. And then also in July is Swift Awareness Week, which is the 3rd to the 10th. So swifts are absolutely stunning birds. They're a real sign that summer's on the way for me. So they're migratory birds, and they start arriving in the UK around May time, after spending their winter in Africa. So unfortunately, swifts aren't really doing very well in the UK at the moment. A recent breeding bird survey suggests that they've declined in Wales by almost 70% since 1995. So this has a lot to do with loss of nesting sites, with new buildings not having as many nooks and crannies in when they're built, and older buildings like churches and barns are being renovated or converted into houses a lot at the moment. So swifts are really faithful to their nesting sites as well. So if a site is lost, it's not quite as easy as the swift just finding a new spot. It can mean that they lose an entire breeding season. So they're also colonial nesters, which is an added complication. They don't really like setting up home where there aren't other swifts, which makes it even more difficult for them to find a nest site. So we as a council are hoping to do some work with swifts this year. We're hoping to install some swift boxes in suitable locations, but we need as many swift boxes as we can get. So if you do want to help your local swifts, it would be amazing if you could consider putting some boxes on your house, or if you know any potentially suitable public buildings, please get in touch with us and let us know. Swifts are really clean, so you don't really need to have to worry about droppings or cleaning out the nest box, but they are quite particular about where they nest, so boxes can only really be placed facing north or east, and they need to be at least 5 meters off the ground with a clear flight path into the box, so just keep that in mind. And then lastly, International Bog Day is on the 24th of July. We have a few peatlands in NPT, and I'm sure lots of you know that peat is hugely important in the fight against the climate crisis. It obviously stores incredible amounts of carbon. It's also a really biodiverse habitat, and it's home to some really rare and special species in NPT, like nightjars and water voles. So unfortunately, a lot of our peatlands in NPT and further afield have been planted up as forestry, and the remaining open peat areas aren't in very good nick either. But one thing you can do to help peatlands is to buy peat-free compost. So unfortunately, peat is a very good growing medium for garden plants, and so it is heavily extracted to be used in the horticultural industry. But yeah, if any of you are keen gardeners, please never ever buy peat compost. There are so many good alternatives around and it really isn't needed. But in terms of what you can do to get involved in helping restore and protect our peatlands in NPT, Richie from the Lost Peatlands Project is joining us to tell you a bit about the project and events and opportunities that they've got going on over the next few months. So I'm pretty sure Richie's joined us now. If you're ready, Richie.
Yeah, hello, yeah. Hi everyone, right?
Have you got slides, or do you just want to?
I have, yeah. I'll share screen now. The messages, is the message option around? I was going to stick some detail in the messages, so I can't see it on screen for some reason.
Sure. I'll stop presenting and see if that helps.
Yeah, the chat's there, Richie.
Is it? Yeah. No,
you can send them to me if you want to, and I can put them in the chat.
All right, cheers, Rose. Yeah. Hi everyone, my name's Richie. I'm the project manager for the Lost Peatlands Project, and thanks for letting me speak tonight, Chloe and co. So yeah, I'm not going to go into a full project rundown or update really. We can there's going to be opportunity for that. Our end of year is in July, so following the end of year report, there'll be full full details of what's happened in the past year, but we're updating as much as we can as we go along. Tonight specifically, I'm going to talk about what events we got going on this summer. So we've been pretty busy at the project, scheduling events which have started. Our first one is actually today up in Cummer. So they started now. They're going to be running till the end of September. Things quieten down for the winter. That's where we tend to go up to the up to the tops and start restoring peatland. So yeah, the events, whilst some still do continue over winter, mostly in the spring and summer. So just gonna sort of bring this one up. Current slide, that should do it. Yeah, Rose, if you could, the email that I sent to you earlier, just the website address and the ebook as well, if you could pop that in the chat, please. Thank you. Right, so current slide. Okay, here we are. So lots of information there, but what we are doing is scheduling per quarter. So we're into Q4 of the project. That's going to be April, May, and June, and we've got a series of events here. So whilst it's a lot to sort of go through now, what Rose is going to pop into the chat box is a link to both our website and an ebook that we've produced, and that has all the information in that. So if you'd like to go into that link and store that link, that would be the best way to sort of peruse everything that's on the next few months. But as you can see, there's quite a lot on. We're looking at an event a week at least, sometimes more than one. But yeah, it's scheduled ahead of time, and yeah, hopefully that will give people plenty of sort of notice to book these events and get involved. So within one of the links that Rose will put in as well is the ebook, like I mentioned. So there's going to be there's a lot of information within that ebook about the actual events themselves. So yeah, it's quite a sort of multifaceted project. There's a lot on offer, especially for those keen on wildlife and getting into ecological surveying and habitat management, just getting out and involved really in your local sort of areas. And so there is a lot more than I can sort of summarize here, but like I say, if you sort of follow that link, we'll have information on the website as well. There's detail on each of the things that we're going to be, or the events that we're going to be offering for the summer. And just to sort of, for those that aren't aware of the project area, it's worth sort of refreshing people's memory for the ones that are. So the project straddles Neath Talbot and one kind of Taff. So on the Neath Talbot side, we have 3 community wild spaces. They are at Gwynfi, Glencorrwg and Cummer, and they are sinks in their own right. They're sites of interest for nature conservation, so they're all they've all got their own sort of quirks, and those are the sites at which we're going to be holding a lot of the events. The main peatland site in NPT is at Cregan, which is above Glencorrwg. So we haven't restored any peat there. That's due for restoration this coming winter. So yeah, what we see here is a picture of the site. What you see here is part that is actually felled, but there's a lot more that needs to be felled, and that's going to be happening from May time. I think NRW are felling trees there. So once that has gone, as well as all the brash, we'll be moving in winter time to restore that site. So there will be a lot more going on sort of this time next year, really, in terms of site visits to Cregan. But yeah, for the summer, our usual events at Cregan are sort of they're not happening due to the felling works. So, but yeah, that's just to highlight what is in the Neath Talbot area. And like I said, these are the just quick pictures of each of the CWS sites. So they, like I said, they've all got sort of their own speciality, species and quirks. Glencorrwg is there's actually a layer of peat. It's very small, quite thin layer of peat, but it does exist underneath this site. It's currently covered in purple moorgrass or Molinia, and we're looking to set up a grazing trial here, which I'm not going to talk much more about it, but I'll allude to it now in a minute when I highlight an event that we got coming up for Glencorrwg. So these are the 3 sites. Of course, you know, I'm aware I'm speaking to a Neath Talbot group, but everybody's welcome to the project area as a whole. So there's events happening across in the RCT. Some of the sites there are also very sort of unique, and we've got something on tomorrow at Blaen Rhondda, or Pen Peak, people will know it as. So that's like a really interesting site, really great views if you get to the top. On the way up, lots of waterfalls and just a lot of habitat, really. So it's a very interesting site. And yes, that we've split down also is what we've got going on at each site. So I'm not sure if this is in the ebook. If it's not, we'll get it in. But what it is, it just highlights stuff that's all the events that we got going on throughout the summer. So as you can see, there's I can't really see that, so you probably can't yourself, but there's a lot of different events going on. So we're starting with the introduction to nature training, and just a brief sort of rundown of what these are. The introduction to nature training is pretty much a guided walk, and it just introduces the site itself to those that come along. We'll also be sort of there to answer any questions about the project and how you can get involved. Following that, it's going to be the introduction to wildlife recording. So that's citizen science recording is another term for it. And yeah, opportunity to get out, improve your sort of ID skills, and also then contribute to national data sets. So we will be at hand with, we'll be able to provide tablets for those who haven't got smartphones and whatnot, but if not, it's a case of downloading apps if you haven't got them, and recording the wildlife that we spot on that day in particular. And June, July is when we get stuck into the sites that need work. So like I said, all sites are different, but an example at Cummer and Glencorrog I know is Inns. So there's a lot of balsam there, a lot of balsam bashing to do. So that will be, yeah, that'll commence in June, sort of July time, as well as some habitat surveying. So our ecologists, we've got two ecologists, Mike and Joey, Joey Pickard and Mike Shuring. They'll be on site and they'll be sort of leading volunteers and participants really on surveying skills. And yeah, the aim is basically once we get sort of volunteers trained up, they can actually survey on behalf of the project, and we can just sort of build that data set over the project lifespan, see what the habitat works that we're doing, see if it's sort of contributing to local biodiversity. Yeah, those are the habitat management sort of events and habitat surveying. In August, we've got Wild Blitz. I know that's at Cummer, and I think Rose is leading on that. So you're going to talk at that at the next local nature partnership meeting, I believe, Rose. So we'll leave that until then. But yeah, I've not actually been to a Wild Blitz event, so I couldn't speak fully on it. But very much just more of what I've just discussed, really. It's a chance to get out. There's going to be all sorts going on in terms of surveying and just fun things for all, really, for nature enthusiasts and also families. So that'll be in August. And there's also health and wellbeing workshops to look out for at various sites, and that is with Coed Clayle. So they're going to be out. And yeah, there's different sort of specific programs for adults only, for families only, for adult drop-in sessions. So something else to look out for. But it's yeah, a lot of bushcraft. It's a lot of good stuff, really, especially in summertime when you get out and about. So yeah, that's a quick rundown of each site. And like I said, I've just gone back with them. Just a couple of events I want to bring attention to. So we've got well, like I said, we've got one tomorrow up in Pen Peak in RCT, but the following Tuesday, so it is Tuesday today, isn't it? Yeah, next Tuesday is a guided walk called Introduction to Nature Training at Glencorrog. So again, Rose and I believe Chloe are coming along to that as well. Are going to be there to sort of aid in knowledge of the site, and we're just going to be walking around talking about, in particular, grazing, conservation grazing. So this site, we are aiming to get a fence around it and get some grazers on. So main reason being is the millennia, just knock that down. So yeah, there's going to be other benefits of that. So that will be next Tuesday, and the website's probably best to sort of find a way to book that on, or like I said, the ebook will have details within. And we've also got a bog day. So something that we would love to do is get people up into the peatlands themselves. So this past winter, we've been restoring Castell North, which is above Mardy and Aberdare in Rhondda and Taff. So it's a big site. It's 50 hectares in total, and this winter we've completed about 30 hectares or so. There's more trees to fell before we finish off the site. But yeah, this is on the 3rd of May, this bog day, and we're going to be inviting everybody up to the peatlands themselves. The project staff are going to be there. NRW, who are a partner of the project, so a lot of their staff are going to be there, and they will also be able to talk about peatland restoration across Wales as well. So just a great opportunity to get up and about. So yeah, touch wood, weather's good, and it'll be nice to get everyone up there. So yeah, there's 2 sessions during that day, just for info as well. So the one in the daytime at 12, and there's an evening session as well for those that can't make it in the daytime. So yeah, that's just a brief sort of, well, it's a summary of what we've got coming up. So it'd be lovely to see people like yourselves out there, people that are interested in nature, to come out and see the sites themselves, get involved. We are looking for volunteers. We've got a growing volunteer force, and main duties for the volunteers really are to sort of conserve the sites that we have, and just to build their own skill set really, as well as all the other good things that go with volunteering, like networking, getting outside, you know, health and well-being. The lot really is yes, it's good all round. So I think that's pretty much all for me for now, Chloe, but thanks again for letting me chat tonight, and yeah, I hope to see people out there.